Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I've got a show for you guys today that has a song that is a little bit different for Uriah Heep. There is a credit for spoken Russian words by Maria Zakhajiva. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or as close to right as I can be without actually knowing what is right, because I actually have no idea. I just see the name. I don't get any kind of pronunciation to go with it. But anyway, this would be the first time that we've had some additional just dialogue put into the song, and certainly the first time in Russian. So this is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm excited to hear this song. Are you guys? Let's just get right into it. Here it is. The song is called Cry Freedom by Uriah Heep from the album Raging Silence. Now, this is our 17th season, okay? So if there's one thing that I know about Uriah Heep, I know that the band is about to kick in here. And before that happens, I just thought we should talk about that intro because it's really, really interesting, kind of beautiful in a way that's also mysterious and maybe a little bit haunting. I don't know if the title is part of what's telltale there. You know, the title itself, Cry Freedom, that tells me that this is probably going to be a anti-war song, I should say, or maybe something about something that happened during a war. I could be completely wrong, but just going off of that general principle. And then the opening, though, is really, it's got a warmth to it in that organ, you know, beautiful Hammond straight, no distortion on it until the end that you could hear there coming in. But just really beautiful, nice, gentle notes. And it's backed by a lovely little synth. And it just has a bit of intrigue to it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where it goes. This is interesting. We've got a great solid drum beat, a little bit of a reverb and gate on the snare, got bass just pumping, you know, even notes, nothing too crazy right here, but it sounds good. It's a good setup for the song. But what's really interesting is the keyboards here, because we've got a synth that's playing a melody, and it kind of has an Oriental feel to it without it being Oriental, right? They're not using any kind of instrument that would be from, you know, Japan or China or anything like that. It's just a nice, I would say it's almost a vocal pad, but it doesn't sound quite like a vocal pad, but something in that range. And it's playing this lovely little melody, but it really feels Oriental to me, even though it's not being played by an Oriental instrument. So again, another step forward and another, this is interesting, I wonder where it's going kind of question.
Finest
Okay, so lots to talk about in this little section right here. So before I forget, I want to talk about how the bass changed. There's some cool little licks being thrown in there. I don't know if you can hear them, but they're just a nice little, twinge off of what you would normally be hearing a bass player do. Just again, a little touch that adds quite a bit of an effect to it. Drums are nice and solid, playing pretty straightforward. I'm hearing again the two rhythm guitar tracks in the slightly right and then just off center left in my headphones, and they sound great. And then a nice little fill in there from Mick. Really interesting, the spoken word, because I kind of thought it was going to be in rhythm with the song, and it wasn't. So that kind of threw it off a little bit for me. Also, I kind of expected it to be more melodic instead of spoken word. Like, I know it said spoken word, but it's for a song, so you still think that there's going to be some kind of melodic or breathable texture to it, to the delivery, and there wasn't. It was very much spoken word, but it was interesting, the sound of it too, because that it can be such a harsh language, Russian, not so much as German, which is a very gruff language, but Russian can really kind of go either way. And she was just delivering her dialogue very straightforward, like she was telling a story without inflection. So maybe she's just getting the story started, which is kind of what the song alluded to. But either way, very interesting combination. Lots of interesting things going on here. I'm excited to hear the next part.
She had a plan to break across the border. Instead of waiting for the powers that be, try freedom, sweet freedom. Tell the whole world to get ready. Try freedom, sweet freedom. Tell the whole world that we're ready.
Wow, there's so much that just happened right there. I'm not sure exactly where to start. I'll start with the backing vocals. Really nice minimal use, enough to make a point, to make an emphasis, to have the song sound thicker and bigger and more powerful, but also not overusing the vocals here, really just more of an accent. So that's pretty nice. I think that Bernie's voice blends in with that very well. Really love the way he sounds on this. Again, going from that smooth, gentle thing to the power, really just works for him. It's like his wheelhouse. Really interesting things going on the keyboard, though, because we've got some, mid to high range keyboard sounds going on in back, which I can't quite make out exactly what they're doing, but I am hearing them cutting through in between some of the other sounds. So it's interesting to talk about maybe something that's a little bit darker, but to have more higher pitched, not quite happy sounding keyboards, but certainly not in that in the realm of doom. So it's a nice offset. Very interesting.
She said goodnight, but just as I was leaving, a black car came into view. And waiting there, they could hear me breathing. They knew that I knew. Cry freedom, sweet freedom. Tell the whole world to get ready. Cry freedom, sweet freedom. Tell the whole world that we're ready.
It's really interesting hearing this, because it seems like with Lee Kerslake, there's just a whole new energy, a whole new approach. Not sure exactly what it is, because it wasn't like he just came back to the band for this album, but there's just something that's a different spark with him on this album, and I'm really enjoying it. Great playing all around, though. Bass is nice and solid. Guitars, keyboards, everything is there. But there's a really nice sort of guitar almost slide that went through there towards the end of the chorus. It's a little hard to hear because of the panning, but it was there. I thought that was a really nice effect. Just some really nice surprises. I have a feeling we're about to hit a guitar solo. So before we do, I'll tell you a quick story what the lyrics there reminded me of. So Bernie's talking about, she tells the story. He heads out. There's this car there. Many years ago, a friend of mine said, I want to watch the movie The Human Centipede with you because I've seen it and I have questions about how it was done. And of course, I've worked in film, so I know some of the behind the scenes stuff and strategies and things like that. So I bought it and I said, all right, well, we'll find a time. And it was like 2 months before we could actually get together. So here I've got, she goes, don't watch it. Don't read the back cover. Don't learn. So it's just sitting on my countertop and all I'm seeing is the front cover, which is very bizarre. And I know nothing about this movie. So watch the movie. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Definitely not a movie for the faint of heart because those images will easily stick with you. Even if you're a horror fan, I would say this one might be a cautionary tale. And then the aftermath of it is you'll start thinking about who you would put in a centipede. But in any case, it was really late by the time that I left her house. It was about 2 a.m. and I had to be on set the next morning. But I was getting sick. So I had completely lost my voice by this point. I mean, it sounded maybe slightly above a wheeze at best. So the one night in Phoenix that for whatever reason, it was just completely foggy. And I did not park very close to her house because there was a party going on somewhere. And so the streets were packed with cars. So I had a bit of a walk on a foggy night at 2 a.m. after seeing this really bizarre horror movie that, I have to admit, it kind of freaked me out, just the concept of it, And I'm a pretty big horror movie fan, so it really takes a lot to crack that egg. But I'll tell you, it was a off-putting feeling at this hour with the fog and everything else. So I'm walking back to my car, and of course, every sound that I hear, a bird landing on a car hood or whatever, just like everything was a major deal. And as I'm walking to my car, I'm thinking, if I had to scream for help, no one would hear me because I have no voice left at this point. So it was a really freaky thing. And when Bernie talked about he's leaving the house, she's told her story, he's leaving the house, and there's a black car there. That image just came like right into my mind. And I thought I would share that. So I apologize for the digression there, but I thought it was an interesting trigger for me to go right back to that moment. Anyway, let's get back to the song. Yeah, I love that Oriental feeling part at the beginning of the section there that we had heard earlier. It kind of explains a little bit to me now that I'm thinking about it, what Phil's playing in the background on the keyboards. They're probably using a similar sound, but staying within that general range. And that might be why it sounds a little bit more in the higher register. But I really like the part. I think it's cool. It's definitely something that you would not expect in the song. You wouldn't expect to have this, heavy rock song with a good solid tempo and an Oriental feeling keyboard part, but it really works. It makes it interesting. I feel like that progression and that sound is part of the story. And I like that. I like when I can feel that an instrument is actually part of the story instead of just supporting the story, And then out comes Mick just flying out of nowhere with this blistering solo. Absolutely incredible. I feel like that's the kind of thing, if I could hire Mick to pop out of a cake, that's what I would want him to do. Just play some crazy solo afterwards. He's really shredding on it. I mean, playing a lot of quick notes, but he's really, really good at that. And but again, it all felt in context of the song, which is so important for me as a listener that it has to make some kind of sense. And it certainly does. But he played some parts very quickly. It's just a blistering solo. Loved it.
They asked me what did I know, so strange, they let me go. One more they try, the stronger our love grows. I know that you know. Try freedom, sweet freedom. Tell the whole world to get ready. Try freedom, sweet freedom. Tell the whole world that we're ready. Try freedom.
I love how just rich and full this sounds. It's very powerful. Really adds just to the depth of the song. And, being that it sounds full in both ears, just really adds so much to the presence of what we're listening to. But I love it. I love the pitch change from Cry Freedom to Sweet Freedom. I think that's really nice. Just so many good things going on here. Little fill-ins from Mick, just as we heard as I stopped this part. He was giving a good run down the string. And, little things make a big difference. Wow, that was cool. There was a nice high note in there towards the end. I love that they were making changes on each of those passes of the chorus. That really kind of goes back to the way that they used to be, where they weren't just repeating and letting it fade out or letting the singer kind of riff there, really just changing the actual music through each part. And I really dug that. It was a kind of a nice surprise. What are you going to get each time they did a pass of the chorus? And that was a nice fade, really good timing, not too fast, not too slow. I thought that worked out perfectly for this song. So yeah, guys, another great song, very powerful, a lot to unpack in here. There's a lot going on. Had a little guest star in there. Pretty cool stuff. I hope that you guys enjoyed the song as much as I did, because I really did. I think it's a good one. It seems like I say this all the time now, but I'm sure I'll be listening to that many times over in the future. But for now, for today, that's it, guys. That's the show. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!